The year 1953 marked a turning point in American automotive history, a moment when post-war optimism blended with engineering ambition to create cars that symbolized freedom, power, and the new identity of the United States as the world's emerging superpower. Among the vehicles that came out of this era, few captured the spirit of transformation as profoundly as the Oldsmobile 88 of 1953. Although overshadowed by more famous icons like the Chevrolet Bel Air, the Ford Fairlane, or even Oldsmobile's own later models, the 1953 Oldsmobile 88 had an influence that spread far beyond the showrooms of its time. It embodied a technological leap that would redefine what Americans expected from a car, blending performance, style, and durability in a way that set a new standard. Yet strangely, despite its contributions, the Oldsmobile 88 of 1953 remains a legend that only a small number of enthusiasts truly appreciate today. To understand why this car mattered so much, one must first look at the world that shaped it. America in the early 1950s was a land before the interstate highways, where cars had to withstand rough rural roads, long journeys between distant towns, and mechanical stress that would break weaker machines. It was a time when families were growing, suburbs were spreading, and the automobile was no longer just transportation but a symbol of personal independence. A car needed to do more than simply move, it needed to represent who you were, what you dreamed of, and how you wished to be seen in a rapidly changing society. In this environment, Oldsmobile saw an opportunity to merge rocket-age inspiration with practical engineering, creating a machine that felt both futuristic and reliable. The 1953 Oldsmobile 88 took this challenge seriously. It arrived with a design that blended curves and edges in a way that made it look powerful even at rest. Its front grille, low stance, and elongated hood suggested strength, while its roofline and rear fenders gave it the smoothness associated with jet aircraft of the era. This fusion of styles was not accidental. Oldsmobile was one of the first brands in the General Motors family to embrace the idea of futuristic identity, aiming to make its cars look like they belonged in the world of rockets, satellites, and speed records. The idea was to tell buyers that owning an Oldsmobile was not simply buying a car, but participating in the future of transportation. But the real revolution of the 1953 Oldsmobile 88 was under the hood. When someone turned the key of the rocket V8 engine, something rare happened. A mass-produced American car suddenly felt like a performance machine. Engines in the early 1950s were growing, but many were still rooted in pre-war designs. Oldsmobile broke the pattern in 1949 with its Rocket V8, yet by 1953, the engine had matured into something even more refined, powerful, and dependable. With 165 horsepower in an era when many competitors were still struggling to break 120, the Oldsmobile 88 delivered acceleration that surprised drivers and stunned rivals. It was fast, but more importantly, it was consistently fast. This reliability became its signature, helping to build its reputation on racetracks such as NASCAR, where Oldsmobile dominated the early 1950s. The performance of the Oldsmobile 88 had cultural consequences as well. The idea of a muscle car would not formally appear until the 1960s, but the groundwork was laid by models like this one. The combination of a relatively lightweight body and a strong V8 engine created a new formula that American manufacturers would later adopt widely. The 1953 Oldsmobile 88 was not designed as a muscle car, but in retrospect, it became one of the seeds of the movement, showing the public what a high-powered everyday automobile could be. Teenagers, young veterans, and an entire generation of drivers began to see cars as something more than tools. They were gateways to excitement, speed, and personal expression. Inside the cabin, the Oldsmobile 88 continued to impress. Interiors of the time were often simple and functional, but Oldsmobile added a degree of luxury that made the driving experience feel elevated. Soft materials, chrome details, and ergonomic features made long trips comfortable in ways earlier cars simply could not match. The dashboard, with its symmetrical gauges and elegant curves, gave the driver the sense of being in control of a sophisticated machine. For many families, the Oldsmobile 88 became the first car in which they felt truly modern, as if they had stepped into a new era of American life. Another reason the 1953 Oldsmobile 88 is so important, though rarely acknowledged, lies in how it represented the early merging of design and marketing in American automotive culture. Oldsmobile promoted the car using themes of speed, progress, and futuristic aspirations, often highlighting the rocket V8 as a selling point. This strategy connected emotionally with consumers in a world fascinated by the atomic age, where anything associated with rockets, jets, or modern science felt exciting and inspiring. The Oldsmobile 88 was marketed not just as transportation but as an experience, a shift that would later become standard practice throughout the industry. On the roads, the Oldsmobile 88 of 1953 built a reputation for toughness. Many owners spoke of the car's ability to run hundreds of thousands of miles with only minimal maintenance. Its suspension, strong frame, and durable drivetrain made it a favorite among drivers who lived in rural areas or traveled long distances. The car became a common sight in the expanding suburbs, carrying families on vacations, visiting relatives, and exploring new places that were becoming accessible thanks to expanding road networks. One of the most overlooked aspects of the Oldsmobile 88 is how influential it became outside the sphere of private ownership. Police departments across the country began adopting the model for patrol duty because of its speed and reliability. In a time when police forces were transitioning from older, underpowered cars to vehicles capable of responding quickly to emergencies, the Oldsmobile 88 proved itself as a dependable partner. Its performance allowed officers to chase down criminals more effectively, making it an early example of how automotive engineering could directly affect public safety. Despite all these accomplishments, the legacy of the 1953 Oldsmobile 88 declined over the decades. This is partly due to the overwhelming success of later American classics from the late 1950s and 1960s, which drew the spotlight with their exaggerated fins, chrome-heavy exteriors, and thunderous engines. Cars like the 1957 Chevrolet Bel Air, the 1959 Cadillac, and the early Ford Mustangs became cultural icons, capturing the imagination of multiple generations, while the earlier models like the Oldsmobile 88 quietly faded from mainstream memory. Yet among collectors and historians, the respect for the 1953 88 never truly disappeared. They recognized it as a milestone, a machine that helped define what American automotive engineering could achieve. Today, the Oldsmobile 88 of 1953 remains a rare treasure. Many examples were lost to scrapyards, weather, or simple neglect, but the survivors are cherished by enthusiasts who understand their historical significance. Restoring such a car is a labor of love, a tribute to an era when craftsmanship, durability, and innovation converged in unforgettable ways. Owners often speak of how smooth the engine still feels, how solid the car remains even after 70 years, and how unmistakable the sound of the rocket V8 is when it comes to life. Driving a restored Oldsmobile 88 is like stepping back into a world where America was redefining itself, where engineering was bold, and where the dream of the open road seemed limitless. Part of what makes this car so fascinating is the way it represents a transitional moment in automotive philosophy. Designers were beginning to move beyond the utilitarian shapes of the 1940s and embrace more artistic expressions. Engineers were becoming more daring, pushing horsepower limits and testing new technologies. Consumers were more informed, more demanding, and more willing to invest in vehicles that offered both comfort and performance. The 1953 Oldsmobile 88 stood at the crossroads of these forces, and its impact can still be seen in the vehicles that followed. When examined closely, the cultural value of the Oldsmobile 88 becomes even more profound. It symbolizes resilience, optimism, and the American belief that innovation can shape destiny. It is a car that connects the past with the future, embodying traditions of craftsmanship while pointing toward the era of high-performance machines that would dominate the coming decades. Its design language influenced not just Oldsmobile models, but the general direction of General Motors styling. Its engine set standards that competitors sought to match. Its presence in motorsports helped transform racing into a national spectacle. Even Hollywood embraced the aura of cars like the Oldsmobile 88. While it never became a star car like some later classics, it appeared in films and television shows that depicted the early 1950s, reinforcing its role as part of the American social fabric. Its smooth lines made it easy to film, its chrome details reflected studio lighting beautifully, and its proportions helped define the look of mid-century America on screen. Collectors today often say that the Oldsmobile 88 is a car you buy with your heart rather than your wallet. It appeals to those who appreciate overlooked legends, who understand that greatness is not always recognized by the masses. For many, the 1953 88 is a symbol of authenticity, a reminder that history is full of remarkable creations that were never given the fame they deserved. This sense of discovery is part of its charm. To own or even admire an Oldsmobile 88 is to engage with a piece of history that almost slipped away unnoticed. The mechanical sophistication of the car continues to impress. The rocket V8 engine, while simple by modern standards, was a marvel of engineering at the time. Its ability to deliver consistent, powerful torque made the car feel alive, even at low speeds. Maintenance was straightforward, parts were long-lasting, and the engine had a reputation for surviving conditions that would destroy lesser machines. Stories circulate in enthusiast circles of Oldsmobile 88s being driven across deserts, snowy mountains, and endless highways without hesitation. These tales highlight not only the durability of the car but the trust that owners placed in it. Driving dynamics were another highlight. The steering, though heavy compared to modern power-assisted systems, offered a level of feedback that drivers appreciated. The suspension absorbed road imperfections with surprising grace, contributing to a smooth ride that appealed to families and long-distance travelers. On the highway, the car felt stable and confident, a characteristic that made it ideal for the increasing number of Americans who were beginning to travel cross-country. In many ways, it was a precursor to the grand touring cars that would emerge later. The body construction of the 1953 Oldsmobile 88 deserves mention as well. Built with high-quality steel and assembled with precision, the car had a solidity that modern vehicles, designed around lightweight efficiency, cannot replicate. The doors closed with a heavy, reassuring sound, and the overall structure inspired confidence. While rust was a common enemy of cars from this era, well-maintained examples have proven surprisingly resilient. Enthusiasts who restore these cars often remark that the craftsmanship becomes more evident the deeper you go into the restoration process. Another part of the Oldsmobile 88 story comes from the people who owned it. Many drivers kept the car for decades, passing it down through families as a prized possession. Memories of road trips, celebrations, and important life moments often involve this car. It was a car that carried newborns home from the hospital, took children to school, brought families to weddings, and escorted graduates into adulthood. The emotional connection people formed with it explains why some went to great lengths to preserve their cars even when they were no longer considered valuable. The automotive press of the time recognized the significance of the Oldsmobile 88, although perhaps not with the intensity modern historians assign to it. Reviews frequently praised its performance, build quality, and styling. It was seen as a car that delivered more than it promised, a trait that earned loyalty from buyers. Its competitors respected it, and in some cases feared it, because of how effortlessly it could outperform them on the road or track. As time moved forward, the 1953 Oldsmobile 88 continued to influence the automotive landscape in ways that became more apparent with distance. What seemed at the time like a strong but ordinary family vehicle would, decades later, be recognized as a technological bridge between the post-war era and the golden age of American performance cars. Owners who held on to their 88s for years often commented that no matter how many new models came out, the Oldsmobile still felt special, still felt alive in its own way, as if it carried a spirit tied to the optimism of early 1950s America. This emotional attachment became part of its legacy, helping the car endure in the memories of those who experienced it firsthand. The deeper one looks into the story of the Oldsmobile 88, the more evident it becomes that its greatest achievement was balance. In an era when cars often excelled in one area while compromising another, the 1953 Oldsmobile 88 managed to blend performance, reliability, comfort, and affordability into one cohesive package. This balance made it accessible to middle-class families while still being attractive to enthusiasts seeking thrills. Many cars that followed, especially in the 1960s, would attempt this formula, but few were able to match the clarity with which Oldsmobile executed it. It was a car that did not demand maintenance but welcomed it, a machine that invited long journeys, cross-country explorations, and weekend adventures without hesitation. The significance of the Oldsmobile 88 became even more apparent when comparing it to its competitors of the same era. Ford and Chevrolet produced successful models, but many lacked the raw power and refined engineering of the rocket V8. Chrysler offered alternatives, but their designs often leaned toward luxury rather than performance. The Oldsmobile 88 carved out a unique identity by being neither an entry-level car nor a full luxury vehicle. It was something between, practical enough for families, but exciting enough for racing fans. This dual identity placed it in a category that car manufacturers would spend the next decades trying to master. In the racing community, the 1953 Oldsmobile 88 continued to earn respect. Its success in NASCAR, where durability and horsepower mattered more than sleek design, proved that the car was not just fast in short bursts but could withstand the grueling demands of competition. Drivers who raced Oldsmobiles spoke of how predictable and stable the car felt, how the engine delivered power without signs of strain, and how the car held its ground in tight corners despite its size. These attributes gave Oldsmobile a competitive edge and helped strengthen the brand's reputation among enthusiasts, even though the broader public eventually gravitated toward flashier models from other manufacturers. One of the more overlooked aspects of the Oldsmobile 88 story lies in how it influenced popular culture. While it was not featured as heavily in movies as some larger-than-life classics, it became a staple of the American landscape in everyday scenes: highways, small towns, suburbs, diners, and early drive-in theaters. It was the kind of car you saw in the background of family photographs, parked in front of new homes, or driving along newly paved roads that symbolized the birth of modern America. It represented progress without arrogance, innovation without excess, and strength without intimidation. These qualities made it deeply relatable to the people who lived through that transformative period. The explosion of car culture in the 1950s and 1960s often focused on flamboyant styling, but the Oldsmobile 88 maintained a more restrained elegance. Its designers opted for curves that were subtle rather than exaggerated, chrome that enhanced rather than overwhelmed, and proportions that conveyed confidence instead of aggression. This understated design helped the car age gracefully. While some cars of the era eventually began to look outdated or overly stylized, the Oldsmobile 88 retained a timeless quality that still appeals to collectors today. The car's interior also reflected this philosophy of balance. Oldsmobile prioritized comfort and practicality without sacrificing style. The seating was spacious, accommodating families of varying sizes, while the materials used throughout the cabin were chosen to last. Many surviving examples still have original interior components intact, a testament to the durability of the craftsmanship. The instrument cluster was designed to be intuitive, with clear gauges and elegant lines that made the driver feel as though they were operating a sophisticated piece of machinery. For many people of the time, driving the Oldsmobile 88 was not simply a routine act, it was a small daily luxury, an experience that elevated the ordinary moments of life. Under the hood, the rocket V8 continued to define the character of the vehicle. The engine's responsiveness contributed to the car's identity as a powerful yet refined machine. It was an engine that rarely complained, even under heavy use. Mechanics who worked on the Oldsmobile 88 often remarked that the car seemed designed with serviceability in mind, making it easier to maintain and repair than many of its contemporaries. Replacement parts were straightforward to install, and the overall mechanical layout suggested that Oldsmobile engineers had a deep understanding of the importance of longevity. This blend of engineering foresight and stylistic restraint is one of the reasons the 1953 Oldsmobile 88 earned such loyalty from its owners. Many families kept the car long after newer models became available, not because they couldn't afford an upgrade, but because they simply didn't want to part with a machine that had served them so well. The car became part of family history, tied to memories of childhood, road trips, celebrations, and life milestones. It carried generations from one stage of life to another, becoming more than an object, it became a witness to personal stories. As the decades passed, the automotive industry changed dramatically. Manufacturers pushed for greater speed, new technologies, improved safety, and more extravagant designs. Some cars became famous for their radical styling, while others gained attention for groundbreaking performance. In this whirlwind of progress, many early 1950s models gradually faded from public consciousness. But the Oldsmobile 88 resisted this disappearance. While not widely celebrated, it maintained a devoted following among collectors who understood its historical value. For them, the 1953 model represented the moment when American automotive engineering matured, when performance met practicality in a way that felt authentic and honest. Restorers today often find themselves captivated by the Oldsmobile 88 as soon as they begin working on one. They discover the car's carefully thought-out construction, its intelligently designed components, and the solidity that defines cars of that era. Restoring an Oldsmobile 88 is not simply a mechanical process, it is an exploration of a time when cars were built with pride, using techniques and materials that reflect the craftsmanship of mid-century America. Every bolt, every panel, every piece of chrome tells a story of an industry still finding its identity but already demonstrating remarkable skill. The modern automotive world, with its computer-controlled engines, lightweight materials, and complex electronics, might seem far removed from the era of the 1953 Oldsmobile 88. Yet the essence of the car lives on in subtle ways. The philosophy of combining performance and practicality became the foundation for many later American vehicles, including some of the most iconic cars of the 1960s and 1970s. The commitment to durability influenced decades of engineering decisions across the industry. And the understanding that a car could inspire an emotional connection helped shape marketing strategies that continue to this day. The story of the 1953 Oldsmobile 88 also highlights an important truth about automotive history: significance is not always measured by fame. Some cars become cultural symbols for reasons unrelated to their engineering contributions, while others quietly shape the direction of the entire industry without widespread recognition. The Oldsmobile 88 falls into the latter category. It changed expectations, influenced design philosophies, and helped define the path of American cars for years to come, yet it remains a hidden gem, appreciated primarily by those who take the time to look deeper. In car shows and private collections today, the Oldsmobile 88 often attracts the attention of people who have never seen one before. They are struck by its graceful lines, its sturdy presence, and its unmistakable aura of authenticity. When the hood is opened and the rocket V8 is revealed, admiration turns into respect. The engine represents a turning point in American engineering, a moment when technology leaped forward and opened the door to decades of innovation. For younger generations, seeing a car like this can be an eye-opening experience, a reminder of how far automobiles have come and how much character early models possessed. Driving a restored Oldsmobile 88 in the modern world creates a contrast that is almost poetic. Surrounded by aerodynamic shapes and silent engines, the Oldsmobile stands out with its bold chrome, its resonant exhaust note, and the tactile sensation of mechanical feedback. It feels alive in a way modern cars, for all their efficiency and refinement, simply cannot replicate. The rumble of the rocket V8, the weight of the steering wheel, and the gentle sway of the suspension offer a driving experience that connects the driver directly to the machine. It is a reminder of a time when cars had soul, when they were expressions of human creativity and engineering skill rather than products of digital optimization. Collectors often describe their Oldsmobile 88s as more than vehicles, they see them as artifacts of American history. They represent a time of hope, growth, and ambition. They reflect a generation that believed deeply in progress, innovation, and the promise of tomorrow. The 1953 Oldsmobile 88 embodies this belief in its design, its engineering, and its longevity. It is a mechanical testament to the idea that greatness sometimes comes quietly, without fanfare, but leaves a lasting mark nonetheless. Another fascinating element of the Oldsmobile 88 story is how it evolved over the years. Later versions of the 88 would grow larger, more powerful, and more luxurious, but many enthusiasts argue that the purity of the model peaked in the early 1950s. The 1953 model, in particular, captured the essence of what Oldsmobile was trying to achieve, a true balance of form and function, style and substance. It set a standard that later versions, while impressive in their own right, struggled to recapture. The car also holds an important place in the broader narrative of General Motors. At a time when GM was rapidly expanding and defining itself as the world's most influential automotive corporation, the Oldsmobile 88 helped demonstrate that the company could deliver groundbreaking engineering across different brand tiers. It showed that innovation was not reserved for luxury divisions like Cadillac but could be shared with more accessible brands to shape the entire market. This approach helped GM dominate the American automotive scene for decades. As time passes, the rarity of surviving Oldsmobile 88s only increases their mystique. Each restored example becomes a piece of living history, carrying with it the stories of the people who built it, drove it, and cared for it. Every scratch repaired, every panel repainted, and every chrome piece polished is a tribute to the vision of the engineers and designers who created the car. Enthusiasts often say that restoring an Oldsmobile 88 is like bringing a legend back to life, giving new breath to a machine that once shaped the roads of an entire nation. Ultimately, the story of the 1953 Oldsmobile 88 is a story about innovation, identity, and the hidden power of quiet influence. It may not appear on every poster, every documentary, or every collector's list of the most famous classics, but its impact resonates through the decades. It stands as a reminder that not all heroes are loud, not all icons are well known, and not all milestones receive the recognition they deserve. The Oldsmobile 88 may be a car that almost nobody knows, but those who do understand its value recognize it as one of the foundational pillars of American automotive evolution. To appreciate the Oldsmobile 88 is to appreciate the essence of mid-century America, a nation discovering its strength, its creativity, and its love for the open road. It is a car born from a time of imagination and determination, built by people who believed in the power of engineering, and preserved by enthusiasts who refuse to let its history fade. Even as the world moves into the future with electric vehicles and autonomous technology, the spirit of the 1953 Oldsmobile 88 remains alive, reminding us that sometimes the most extraordinary things are the ones quietly waiting to be rediscovered.